So maybe just before we start, elaborate a little bit, Gus.
What we're looking to do is a story on legal pot is coming, and there's a lot of concern about a test and being able to give people tickets and this sort of thing. And right now we don't have a test that's that you can do at the side of the road that says you've been smoking weed.
Yeah,
and even
no
then,
problem.
So let's. I was just wondering if you'd have a few thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. If you could just give me your name and your title in life, just so I can adjust my levels.
Avi Levy, founder at Ticket911.ca.
Excellent. So let's just jump right in. How do you figure they're going to end up having to do this? Because right now there's a policy a policy gap within legislation. There is no test that cops can use at the roadside to see if someone's been smoking weed, and they want to be doing this. They will have legal weed by the time back to school is ready in September.
Right. So the problem that they're facing right now is they don't have a test that's able to measure the degree of incapacitation of an individual. So basically they rely on symptomatic tests, and those are not always the greatest, and they're not always precise. So you don't get a clear answer. So the problem with that is the police officer has to make an evaluation, has to make a judgment call on whether he thinks the person is incapacitated or not, to the point where they can't drive.
And that's going to be pretty different, compared. It's not something you can really tell all that well, as you can with alcohol. There's no smell necessarily, that kind of thing.
Right. Well, the advantage with alcohol is that you could measure the level of alcohol in the blood. There's machines that are able to do that. But the problem with smoking cannabis is that that the THC stays in your fat cells, and it could stay in your cells for up to 30, 40, 50 days is my understanding, depending on weight, depending on consumption habits, and so forth. So it does. If somebody tests positive that they have THC in their system, it doesn't mean that they smoked just before, getting pulled over. They could have smoked a month ago. So that's the real problem. They can't determine with a degree of certainty if the person is incapacitated when they pull them over. They have to make a judgment call. And the problem with the judgment calls is that sometimes they get it wrong. We did a trial not too long ago for a DUI based on cannabis, and we won because the symptomatic tests were not really conclusive, the judge decided.
Avi, are you walking around in a room somewhere or something as you do this interview?
Yeah.
There's parts of your room where you're completely dropping out. So
I won't move.
Yeah, that'd be great. Hopefully we'll find you in the right spot.
Yeah.
Okay, get yourself comfy.
Okay. So that's the real problem there is really the fact that it's difficult to measure. So when they're going to pull people over and they're going to want to, give them or stop them for a DUI related to cannabis, there's no degree of certainty as to the level of their impairment at the time that they're pulled over.
So how do you think that the governments and I guess and the police as well will have to try and get around this?
Well, they have a problem because scientifically the tools are not available in order to measure what they're looking to measure. So it's going to have to be a judgment call pretty much every time. And that's where the problem lies, and there is no solution right now. That's just the way things are.
So if someone does get pulled over, and it happens now, right, how would an officer try and go about determining whether or not they have been smoking weed?
Well, they would, if they had a suspicion that they were smoking based on smell, based on a bunch of other criteria, then they can pull them over and ask them to do the symptomatic test, which is similar to the drunk driving test, so walking the line and so on and so forth.
Is this a specific test for weed checking?
There are several tests, very similar to the ones for a DUI. So they make you walk a line, they make you do all sorts of different things to see if your coordination is on point, to see if you have a delayed reaction. And from that, they're trained, these officers. From what they see, they determine your level of incapacity, and they determine if you were able to drive at the time or not. And if they determine that you were not, they give you a DUI related to cannabis. And that's a criminal charge, which has some heavy consequences. Right now they're quite they're fightable. There's definitely an argument to be made. There's definitely a challenge to be made as to whether or not the person at the time was incapacitated.
I was just going to say, like, that's got to be very tough to prove. Now, say our morning news guy Andrew Poplawski gets pulled over, and he may want to, maybe he was smoking some weed. I'm not saying he's smoking weed, but if he wants to get out of that ticket, what's the best way for him to try and do so?
Well, I mean, as in any case, the less you speak, the better. Let the police officer do what he needs to do. You have the right not to give your version and not to incriminate yourself. So basically go through the procedures, let them do what they have to do, and I guess stay as quiet as possible. And then from there, we'll look at what evidence they have, and we'll see what type of case the person has.
Okay. Listen, thank you so much for your time this morning. It sounds like they've got a real tough one on their hands.
They do. It's going to be a real problem because, like I say, there's no real test to measure it. So that's the real problem, is that they don't have the tools necessary to measure. So they sort of have to make do with what they have, and that's not always going to be 100%.
So that means we're going to have a lot more lawyer costs now? We have to go to folks like you and others to be like, help me?
I think that there's going to be a lot more people challenging these types of DUIs because of the consequences that it has on their lives, and because of the degree of uncertainty in the proof. I think that there's going to be a lot more openings to challenging these type of cases.
Listen, thanks so much for your time this morning.
No problem. Is there any way that I can get a copy of the clips emailed to me when it's done?
Yeah, sure. I can send you the whole interview.
Oh, great. That would be great.
Just one second. Let me double check. Let me just double check. I think we've got it here in the system.
Yeah, you should, yeah.
alevy@ticket911.ca?
Yes, please.
Awesome. I'll send that to you in a few minutes.
Thank you so much. And one more thing. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I did an interview about 2 weeks ago with you guys, CJAD, and I never got the interview. It was on the carpool lane.
Okay.
Do you think somebody can track that down and send it to people?
Was that during a show?
It was in the morning, like this.
We can try. Yeah, I'm not sure where that would be, because if it was, do you know if it was at the newsroom or someone on the show?
I think it was in the newsroom. Yeah, it was.
I'll have a look, because we've got a limited space in what we hold back, and that may have been, like, if it happened that long ago, it may have just been blown out of the system automatically.
Okay,
but we'll have a look for it. I can send you this one though.
Thank you so much, and have a great day. Anytime you can call me.
Take care. Bye bye now.
Thank you. Bye bye.